Robert Plank Show, episode 230. You have no competition. Get paid to create an information product and turn your knowledge into a new stream of passive income with Fred Gleeck. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Robert Plank Show. This is the Internet Marketing Podcast where we talk about building a business online, and we have a very special guest today. His name's Mr. Fred Gleeck. He's a business coach. So, Mr. Fred, welcome to the show, and can you sort of tell us in your own words what it is that you do and what makes you special?
Absolutely, Robert. Thanks for having me. Yeah, what I do is I used to for many years be involved in the creation of information products about various topics for myself primarily. And what happened is after I exhausted my own supply of brain knowledge, I said, hey, I've got a system that works pretty well. I know how to do this. So why don't I try doing it for other people? So I've kind of morphed my business over the last 5 to 7 years from creating information products about things that I know to now trying to find other people that are subject matter experts who know a lot about a given topic and helping them prepare information products and doing all the things that information marketers would do online for other people. And, my best example right now is Bill DeWeese, who's in the voiceover business, but I've got a number of other clients in other niches as well. So what I do is I get together with people who not know a lot about a topic and help them develop a system for creating and selling information online.
Cool. So you would say that a lot of these people, like your Bill DeWeeses or your Travel Scrooges or whoever, they do something or they provide a service or they teach something, and you tell them, well, this thing that you're teaching over and over and over, you could package that into an info product, and that sort of sells on its own. So is that about right? What you do?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm looking for is, again, people who know a lot about their topic, but don't know a lot about process or marketing having to do with information. And so that's where I come in to help them take their knowledge and their expertise, which they're really good at, and do something else, which is to create a separate stream of income related exclusively to their knowledge that they've gained in their own field.
Okay, I got you. Whenever we have like a coach or someone on this kind of program, like the topics that come up are these things sort of like that book, The E-Myth, where the problem that a lot of business owners have is that they want to work in their business, not on their business, and they want to be that person that does the video game characters, or they want to do the radio voiceovers, and then another thing that comes to mind is there's this book, The 4-Hour Work Week, where they talk about the 80-20 rule, and you sort of combine those things together. And what seems to always come up is that a lot of people out there, like your Bill DeWeese or whoever, they're sort of stuck in worker mode, and it seems like all they want to do is just do this thing that they love, but then they're stuck income-wise because they don't have the marketing, and it seems like the only option for them is to sort of only spend 20% of the time doing the thing they love and 80% of the time doing all this marketing stuff, and it's sort of a catch-22 because it's like, well, do you want to do what you love and be poor, or do you want to not do what you love and be rich? So it sort of sounds like this kind of thing you do is sort of done with you, or mostly you do the work. Sort of coaching seems like a pretty good alternative to that kind of situation.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. By the way, I had a chance to speak on the same platform as Michael Gerber many years ago, and when that book first came out, lets you know how old I am, by the way. What I do is, say for example, someone like my Bill DeWeese, who we're using as a good example client. When I met him almost exactly 6 years ago, he was doing $80,000 to $100,000 a year in voiceover business, doing what he loved to do, which was voice. And when I met him, I said, hey, Bill, why don't we try and find a way so that in 3 to 5 years, you can be making as much money from the training side of your business, showing people how to do what you do, as actually doing what you do. And he seemed hip to that. We got together and we were able to do it, and we've hit those goals. So now he's got a business, because people ask all the time, they go, well, here's this guy. He sells a lot of stuff to other voiceover people. Does he actually do any voiceover work himself? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Bill and other clients of mine are doing the business that they do and loving it, but they're also realizing that the knowledge that they've accumulated over the years can be translated into other training material that can be sold to people who are just starting in whatever field they're in. I've got a new client I'm about to take on who's an opera singer. And so this is a guy who wants to produce. He's a successful opera singer at the Met in New York City, the Metropolitan Opera. in New York, and our goal will be to eventually find aspiring opera singers who want to get into the business and want to avoid some of the pitfalls. And this information will give them some ideas about how not to be, kind of careless in your pursuit of opera.
Right, so it's sort of like this opera singer or Bill or whoever they've done all the trial and error. They've tried all these things to get up to where they are, and then they say, well, now instead of you trying to go through all those 10 years of trial and error that I went through, here's this package. Now I give you the shortcut.
Yeah, and to look at it from my client standpoint, if you think about it, they've accumulated all this knowledge inside their head, which is, as I always like to say, it's unused and unsold inventory. They've got all this knowledge and information about their business that's sitting in their brain, and what they're getting paid for right now is the work that they do in their normal business. I tell them they've got a lot of unused and unsold inventory inside their brain that could help other people just starting out in their careers, and like you said, not have to go through the pains and the pitfalls of what they went through.
Awesome. I like the way you think about that, the unsold inventory inside their head. And so,
Yeah.
like whenever I come across someone and I try to, tell them, make a membership site or make an information product, a big thing of resistance that I hear from these sorts of service providers is they say, well, won't I be educating my competition, or won't I now have all these people who are sort of, I have to now fight for jobs? And I mean, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on it if, if you say to anyone out there who, if they're an opera singer, or if they're a voiceover person, whatever, you say, make an information product, if their sort of resistance point is, I don't want to teach your competitors, what are your thoughts in that area?
Well, it's funny because you're hitting on a concept that is the basis of a new book that I'm writing, and I've already reserved the title in terms of a domain name, so I'll give it to you. And the name of it is called "You Have No Competition." And that sounds like a oxymoronic title, because what do you mean I don't have any competition? Well, there's only one Robert Plank in the world. There's only one Fred Gleeck, only one Lance Tamashiro. And naturally, there are other people who do what you do, but no one does it exactly the way that you do. And no one has your personality. Thank God, by the way. But I mean, we've got people like me, Lance, you, and others who do what we do, and we have plenty of competition, but in reality, we don't, because no one does it exactly the way that we do. So that when people go online and they look for people who coach on internet marketing related topics or membership topics like you guys do, but the thing about it is that no one is actually you or Lance. And so when people make a decision to go or not go with a given individual in a given field, it not only it has to do with two things. I always say it has to do with competence, and it has to do with personality. So if you say or evaluating that you're going to find someone to help you in putting membership sites together, and they find 5 different sets of individuals, and among them are Lance Tamashiro and Robert Plank, they're going to go through those other people's materials, and let's assume that they believe all 5 of you are competent. The deciding factor is going to be based on, do I like that guy or those guys? Not, do they have the right stuff? Because conceivably, with all the stuff out there on the internet, there could be 10 people that have the right stuff. So people make their decision in the long run based both on competence and on personality. And you have only one Robert Plank and one Lance Tamashiro.
Awesome. So the personality is there, and if someone sort of beats you on competence, then you need to up your game and meet that competition. And so the other oh,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. So if you're not at the same level of competence, you've got to make sure you're there. But when you're all at the same level of competence, the decision-making part on the part of the client is based on feel, personality, other factors that are kind of nebulous that you can't change.
Fair enough. And then so sort of along those lines, like one thing that I was worried about, because I mean I made the transition to information products probably, I don't know, 13, 14 years ago, and up until then I was really struggling to get hired as a PHP programmer. And one thing I was worried about at the time was I was worried that if I made all these books and ebooks and videos and stuff about how to program web pages and things like that, I was worried that someone would come across my training and someone would buy the course instead of actually hiring me for even more money. And a weird thing kind of happened is that I ended up, by putting out these information products, I ended up with more freelance work than I knew what to do with, and I actually had to turn away work, and I eventually phased that out. And so, I mean, do you have any thoughts on why that is, and what to tell people if they're worried that the product is going to kill the sales of their service?
Yeah, it's a really big worry, and I think it's an unnecessary worry. This is what I've seen, which is that people will buy a program. And I was just going over this with one of my clients who's big into LinkedIn. People will buy a program on how to do it yourself in pick the topic, be it PHP programming, LinkedIn, voiceovers, whatever. And people will buy a program very, very, very much with the intent of learning how to do it from the person who teaches it. And they get the program and maybe they get halfway through it, maybe get all the way through it. And at the end, they go, you know what? This is a really good idea, but I don't want to do this myself. Who should I hire to do it for me? Well, naturally, the person they're going to hire is the person they've just gotten to know on this program, and they call you. So in fact, you're not hurting yourselves by creating information products related to your topic. You're only giving people the opportunity to possibly do it themselves. And my estimation, and again, this is purely a guess, is that of anyone who buys a how to do it yourself product, maybe 5% of the people actually take the information and do it themselves. A large percentage do nothing. And another percentage of those people say, you know what? I need to hire someone to do this for me. And usually that person is you.
Right, because it's like if they bought the core or they bought the product on how to be an opera singer or how to set up a website or whatever, why would they take that information and go and try to hire someone and try to have someone else learn that course where they can say, I can just go to the person who already learned it because they created it.
Exactly. 100%.
And that's a pretty good point there. That there's definitely a huge difference between someone who, first of all, buys your product and reads it, and even gets to the end, and even by the end has that motivation or actually goes and implements it. And so that's a really good point. And so it's like people, why not put that in front of people? Why not give them the opportunity to buy that course and buy that that done for you and stuff like that? And so we kind of have jumped around these different clients and stuff you had, and I'm really curious about sort of what specifically what you and Bill have set up, because you said that you came to him and he was making 80 grand to 100 a year with voiceover, and you came and you had these ideas for different sorts of products. So can you kind of tell us about maybe some of the early stuff you guys set up and how that went?
Yeah. So what happened was he attended. I used to do these. I started out doing like, I'm sure you've even spoken at or been at, some of the big seminars. I was at one of Armin's first seminars at the big seminar where I spoke in front of a larger group of people. And I would speak at these, big events, and I'd get people to buy a product that I'd have for $9.97 or whatever it was. And so then what I did is I smalled it down. I said, you know what? People aren't really doing anything with this. So Bill attended one of my 6-person boot camps at my house in Vegas. And after that week of giving all the people there, including him, everything I knew about information marketing in kind of a nutshell, I then said to him, hey, do you want to work together to do this? And he said, yeah. So I said, okay, well, let's take a look at your business. You're doing about $100,000 as a voiceover artist, but in that case back then, about in the last 4 or 5 years, you've sort of figured out how to get the business, how to do all the things that people starting. So I said, what do you think is the single biggest thing that people have a hard time with doing? And he said, you know what? I think that, the easiest thing for us to go after is, audiobooks had just started getting really big back then. He says, I bet a lot of people would have an interest in learning about how to get jobs having to do with doing audiobooks. And I said, fine, well, let's try that. So we put together, and what I always try and do, Robert, when I create a product is find a way to get paid to create the product itself. So we put together a paid, I think it was a 4-part webinar in which we got people to pay, 150 or $200 to attend the webinar. Then we recorded it, then we sold it. And we did it based on the fact that audiobooks back then were the thing that most people, not necessarily the thing you should do, but the thing that most customers were interested in. And that ended up being successful. And we just rolled out different products after that.
Awesome. So there's a bunch of cool things packed in there, and one thing that really struck me about sort of your thought process with Bill and trying to brainstorm this product is, instead of just saying, oh, let's make a beginner voiceover product, you said, well, what is the actual need? What is the actual problem that's not being filled by people out there? And then you and Bill kind of went from there. And I think that it's really great as well to get paid to create that product. And that's been a huge thing with me and Lance and the courses that we make, where I think a lot of people get stuck and they think that they have to write like a big long book and spend 2 years on it just to sell it for 99 cents a piece. And me and Lance have been really blown away with you have this solution, you price it at a few $100s or a few $1,000s, and then you get paid before you create it. And so one thing that sort of I'm curious about that meeting there, you said that you pitched a big seminar, and then part of that package was an in-house sort of meeting in your house with a bunch of people, and Bill was the guy you narrowed down. And I've noticed just that when me and Lance go for coaching clients, like we've tried a few times to do it over the internet and meet with people on Skype and stuff like that, but the best coaching clients that we found were the ones that we met in person, especially the ones that came to our in-person events. And so, I mean, have you found that's the same sort of thing, like you land the best kind of coaching clients in person as opposed to online?
Yes, agree 100%. And I think that's because, number one, they get to assess you, but more importantly, you get to assess them as well. There are people who've come to my boot camps at my house in Vegas that frankly never want to see again, and never have. But there are also people that you can really get a feel for and go, huh, number one, could I work with this person personally? Are they, my question is always when I take on a client is this. The bottom line for me is whether or not I take them on as a client is, would I want them over to my house for dinner? And if those are the people, if I find people that I really gel with, that I resonate with, you're more apt to be able to get that feel for someone. Certainly after what I did, a week-long boot camp, I got to see that person. I got to basically live with them for a week. And if you can't live with them for a week, at least you can come together with them face to face as opposed to online over the internet. But another thing you said a little bit earlier, Robert, that I wanted to pick up on is you talked about having to write this big long book. We sat down for 4 hours in a Las Vegas hotel room. We had it transcribed. We used a ghostwriter, and boom, the book was written. So on that point, there are lots of ways to do it, as you guys teach as well.
Right, and why do it the hard way if you can do it the easy way? And so, so the next thing, so like sort of along those lines of getting a feel for the person and kind of seeing if there's a clash of personalities, or if they have the right questions, or they listen to you. I mean, what are your thoughts on like the boundaries you have with your coaching clients? Like, are you sort of, if you work with someone, like, are you sort of on call, or are there like set like office hours, or like how do you sort of avoid that kind of scope creep when maybe you guys agree to make a web page and then you end up making more and more and more, and it seems like they're not pulling your weight? How do you sort of figure out those boundaries with all your clients?
I think it's a really good question. And in my case, I probably do it differently than you guys might do, or than other coaches might do as well, which is to me, if I take someone on, and I have a really kind of a unique model that I think we were probably going to talk about, which is basically everyone that I take on as a client now, as a coaching client, is what I call a JV partner, in which we basically create almost a separate piece of their business in which I share 50-50 in the profits from that business. So I'm creating a little bit more than a business relationship. I'm creating really a partnership. And that partnership to me means that I have a super vested interest in the success of our business at that point. So that for me, the lines are very blurred as to where they stop. So if someone says to me that's a JV partner, hey, I couldn't get to this, can you do it? I'm like, hey, yeah, sure, I'll do it, because really it benefits us long term. So I think I'm a little bit different than most people who do coaching, because I really create almost like a business marriage, if you will, between myself and the client. So I'm not as concerned as you would be in a relationship with making sure that you do exactly 50% and I do exactly 50%. Sometimes it's 70-30, other times it's 40-80, or 40, not 40-80 would be good, 120, 40-60. I mean, it is what it is. We just want to get the work done because both of us benefit. So I think it's a little bit of a different model.
Awesome. It is, yeah, because usually when you hear about like a coach, and yeah, I'm glad we brought that up. Usually when you hear about a coach, you hear about they, have like a set monthly rate or a set hourly rate, but you instead say, well, I'm more of your coach. I'm more of a person that works with you. I'm a joint venture partner, and this new info product business that we create, we split 50-50. And so sort of along those lines, I mean, do you ever find yourself getting spread too thin, or do you sort of know like the maximum number of coaching clients that you can take on? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's again a really good question, which is, I really, when you first start out working with someone new, in my case, when I take on a new joint venture partner, what I find is that a lot of the work occurs in the first month or two. And then over time, the work becomes less and less as the dollars become greater and greater. It's kind of interesting how that works. So that it would be tough for me to take on three new joint venture partners, say the same month, but to take them on every other month, new clients would be fine. And in fact, the funniest thing, and you'd get a kick out of this, is that one time, not too long ago, I did what I call a JV Partner Summit, where I got all my people together that are working with me in Vegas for a weekend, and they came in on a Friday, like at about noon, and then they left Sunday at noon. And I'm convinced that had I just gotten everybody together, and by the way, the format for that was pretty cool. We had everybody get up that first, like on that Friday, and give 15 minutes of what they knew best about how to market their information marketing business. So we basically had presentations from 8 or 10 people to the rest of us on what they felt they knew best, which was great. But I swear to you, by Friday night, I could have slipped out the door, come back on Sunday, and people would have said to me, "Oh, hey, Fred, where were you? We didn't see you. We had a great time, by the way. In fact, it was better without you being there." So it's almost as if I don't really need to do a lot except in the very beginning of these relationships, which to me is amazing. I mean, I want to keep doing it.
Right. I mean, and that makes sense. Like once you everyone's rocking and rolling and they have their website set up and you have the email campaigns going and the ads, it's like you said, most of the work is just in the setup, and then later on it's more of just like coasting. It's more of in that kind of maintenance mode. And so along those lines, I mean, what sort of like tasks do you do exactly? Like I know that you've put on live events for some of your clients. You've set up ClickFunnels pages. You've done whole like email campaigns and launches and webinars. I mean, did I leave anything out? Is there anything like super crazy that you do for some of these guys?
You know what? I think that's the bulk of it. But basically, when I talk to people in my initial discussions, I always say, you're about content, I'm about process and marketing. So anything having to do with process and marketing. Now, the other thing, though, is most of the people that I work with, I like them because I have a full time webmaster in the Philippines, but because of his hours, sometimes he can't get to things right away. So I encourage my clients to learn the systems that I'm using. For example, like if ClickFunnels is one of the things we use for putting up web pages, I want the client eventually to be able to get into the ClickFunnels system. And again, some of them are much more technical than others, but I like all of them to be able to get in and actually use and touch the tools themselves. So over time, the client becomes really a partner in this business. But whatever they can't do, I'll do. Whatever they can do, I don't do. That's basically how it works.
And just out of curiosity, have you ever had a client where like you sort of set everything up, and then at some point they decide that they don't need you, and maybe not even necessarily try to screw you out of the business, but like you get things going to a good point. Have you ever had anyone that kind of try to divorce you, so to speak?
It's a good question. In my contract, I have a method for separation. There's a prenup kind of established, but I haven't had that problem, and I think it's similar to people. And I really shouldn't talk, having been married 5 times, but I'm about to say this, which is that I think that the key is in the upfront. I learned this, by the way, after the fourth marriage, so everybody should keep this in mind, which is that the key to success in a business relationship, as it is in a personal relationship, is in proper screening in advance. So if you screen people properly up front, your chances for long-term failure are much less. So that I think that I've been really, really, really careful about who I would invite into that. And I've had people where I had one guy, this is about 5 months ago. He had signed the contract, but I hadn't. And I said, you know what? I noticed some red flags. Boom, it's over. So my suggestion is, in people setting up these kinds of relationships, is be really, really careful in advance of your selection. Have I had any problems after that? I gotta be honest, at this point, no. But we do have in the contract a method for separation.
Awesome. I mean, it's good that you have it in there, and just good to know going in for those if you see those red flags, and kind of factor that into the judgment. And so, I mean, is there anything, if someone is looking for you, and we're gonna share your contact information in a couple of minutes here, but if someone sort of comes across Mr. Fred Gleeck, like if you could sort of have a time machine and tell a young Bill DeWeese when he was first coming across with you, like is there anything that you wish that your future clients should know about you or should know about this relationship going in? Like, is there anything where just you said, "Oh, well, I wish that they had known this sooner." Anything like that?
Yeah, I think most of it has to do with style and not substance, which is that, I'm a pretty strong personality type, and I'm pretty type A, and I tend to, in most cases, work best with people who are more, for some reason I work really well with engineers and lawyers and people who are a little bit more laid back, so that my style tends to work better with a certain other kind of style. And I think that it's really important that anyone who does coaching really look at that fact, which is, not only who can you make the most money with, but who do you work best with as people? I mean, if you think about it, I'm sure you know the whole DISC profile, the DISC profile, or in my case recently, I've just become really enamored with the whole Myers-Briggs thing because I'm the only extrovert in my family. I've got a wife and two kids, all three of whom are introverts. So I think that it's really important to kind of do a personality assessment. And there are other people who teach this much better than I would even think to, but really trying to find people who match with you, both in terms of skill sets and knowledge, but also in terms of personality. And that's, I think, critical. And what I've learned in the last, 6 or 7 years, that's the most important thing to do. And if I could talk myself going back or talk to Bill, that would be critical.
So have that compatibility and the personality. There's so many sort of analogies to marriage and all this coaching and this partnership sort of thing.
100%. Yeah, I mean, it really is that it's really important, and understanding how people, like, how do people resolve conflict, and are people the type of people that are kind of passive aggressive, or are they willing to put things on the table? All of those factors, are important to consider, and it really does. I mean, if you could, in most cases, I literally used to make people take the DISC profile to determine what personality type they were in there. I don't know if you know DISC at all, but
A little
it's a
bit.
simple, yeah, it's a simpler program. But whatever people use, I just think it's a good idea to know whether or not you're dealing with someone, number one, that you're compatible with, but at least know who you're dealing with, whoever that is.
Yeah, and especially not someone who's exactly like you, because then you either butt heads all day long, or you'll both kind of slack off all day long, right?
Agree, 100%.
Well, cool. And so, if people are listening to this here and they, got a lot of takeaways and they say, I'm a business person and I want to up my game. I want to take things to the next level. I mean, where should they go? What should they do? How can they get in touch with you and find out more about you and your coaching?
The best thing to do is just send me an email at my name, Fred, Fred, Gleeck, Gleeck, at gmail.com. I answer my emails myself. I don't have a personal assistant. But if they contact me and put in big letters, Robert Plank sent me, I will definitely open that email.
Awesome. So subject line Robert Plank sent me, and because in this day and age, like everyone's afraid to talk on the phone, everyone's afraid to text. I mean, what should they put in the body of that email? Like, what kind of things should they ask you, and then what sort of response are they going to get back from you?
I would just say that they should tell me what field they're in, whether or not they've produced or created any information products already, what are they trying to do, and just give me a little bit of background about themselves and their business. And in most cases, I'm certainly going to respond with an email. In a lot of those cases, I'm sure I'll say, "Hey, give me a number, give me a Skype address, and let's talk." Because that really is, I mean, in lieu of being together with someone face to face, the next best thing I think is to do some kind of a Skype contact where you can see and talk to the person. And again, this is not an easy or quick process for either one of us to decide. Usually, from the time I first make contact with a person until we sign a deal is usually 60 to 90 days. So this isn't something that's going to happen immediately.
Just like getting married, right? If you're Mr. Fred, been married 5 times, then it might take 90 days to get married to him.
Yeah, don't follow my advice. After number four or five, after number four, fine. But before number four, don't follow my rules.
Nice. Well, it took that long to get all the bugs worked out, right? You're
You
you're
got it,
you're an
exactly.
entrepreneur, and that you're all about trying things and seeing what works.
Yeah, my wife was cool enough to say on her license plate when we first met, she was going to put wife five.
Oh, geez. mean, that's a little pessimistic, but cool. So everyone, if you like Fred, if you like his personality, if you like what he had to say, or you just even want to kind of feel him out and see, and kind of see where things go, email Fred Gleeck. That's FredGleeck at gmail.com. Subject line: Robert Plank sent me, in all caps, and in the body, tell him what your field is, and tell him if you have any information products, and then he'll respond back, and you'll kind of see things go to the next level. So thanks a bunch for stopping by the show, Mr. Fred, and explaining, what it is that you do, what people can watch out for, and what people need to know. So I appreciate you coming by.
Hey, Robert, thanks for having me, man.
Come on. It can't be that easy to update all my websites at once, can it? It's true. People all over the world are using Website Remote to retake control of their WordPress sites. I'm talking about personal sites, niche sites, Amazon sites, business sites, SEO content blogs, membership sites, and more. Go to one single screen to see how your sites are doing. Click a button to update all your plugins. Click a button to update themes, update WordPress itself, compare plugins and plugin versions across different sites, log in instantly, and more. Download it now at websiteremote.com/trial to get your time back and manage all your sites in just seconds.